2, 1, and we are live.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Greetings and salutations.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
I'm Louis.
And I'm D Matt.
I'm Jesse.
We are the wise men.
You.
Today, this episode, we're going to be discussing Universe 25, the Rat Utopia experiment. Before we go ahead and get into that, if you're not already, follow us on our social medias. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, right?
Yep.
Obviously, if you're watching this live, then you know we're on Twitch.
Yep. And we're on everybody's favorite app, TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah.
We're ticking and talking. Steven's
yes,
in charge
we
of
are.
that. Don't blame me if it's garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah, so Universe 25. This was a unique experiment done late 60s, early 70s. Well, I mean, it started like in the 50s with this guy's
Right.
experiments and stuff.
Right.
But the theories and the findings that this guy had kind of developed people's views on social, what's the word I'm looking for?
Social behavior and
Yeah, social behaviors and stuff. And he coined the term behavioral sync.
right.
So that, which is a big one that's been up in the zeitgeist lately with how things are going. But
do you know the
we're gonna let Stevie
do you know
take a run at this one.
Does anyone know like what was going on around that time in the 50s and like late 40s and stuff? But that was
post World War II.
Right, post World War II, and that was the baby boomer generation. You know, that's where
Correct.
the population shot up. I mean,
Well, that's when the baby boomers were born.
Yeah. And after that, that's when the population started to grow at a very rapid pace. And what was going on around that time is, I think
prosperity.
I think it was Scientific America, which is a journal that was present at that time, that they were very interested in, you know, since the rapid growth, they wanted to like perform a bunch of experiments, you know, based off of animal experiments, but to try and predict like the future of human society in a way. And this was a lot of this had to do with a English scholar named Thomas Robert Pathus. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him or anything, but he wrote a bunch of books around that time. And in his books, he talks about the growing population and the possible effects and outcomes, you know, it would have, you know, with the resources in the food industry and everything like that. Like, how would society react, you know, with like a rapid increase in population? And this got, you know, attention with the scientific community. And this is where you had a few scientists working on this at this time. But, you know, the obvious scientists, who is John B. Calhoun, who's the guy who ran Universe 25. But he ran a bunch of other universes. You know, he had a bunch of other experiments that he worked on, like Louis said, you know, in the 60s and 70s, where, you know, he was trying to study and you know, to just find other interesting behaviors, you know, with you know, small rodents and mice and rats, you know, how they react in, you know, dense populations, not just in a physical way, but also a social way. But other than that, John B. Calhoun, which he started off as a scientist studying ornithology. I think that has to do with birds. I could be wrong. It has to do with birds. Okay. So he studied that, and he went on to focus and move over to ethology, which is animal behavior. And in 1947, he started this He started off by I think his first experiment was where he bought quarter of an acre and he performed an experiment which had a famous name called Rat City. Where he was dealing I forget, what was it, I think oh okay, so it was 5,000 rats and this lasted over a time span of just over 2 years. Um, and the behavior of the rats obviously were unique and everything. Um, and he would document these studies, and he would just kind of move on, and he would try and put these rats in different, I guess, systems. I think of them as systems. I think of them as like, these rats are put in a society type feel where they have food, water, shelter, and nesting and everything like that. And over the span of time, with the increase in population, how would these rodents react? And it was kind of fascinating how they did react. I mean,
Right. And
oh
one
yeah,
of the biggest thing was he made these rats comfortable, right? He made it so that they didn't want for food
oh yeah,
or water, like, and they were safe.
mm-hmm.
So it was strictly just their social interactions with no stressors, right?
Right,
Or no like survival stressors, I should say.
right, and
Not at first, anyways, right?
Right. Well, I mean, with
Got pretty
social
fucking stressful after a while.
with social interactions, right? Like, it's kind of on a different but related, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's like, you need to feel safe, you need to feel like secure, and you need to feel loved, or some shit like that, right? I can't remember. I'm butchering it. But like, if you if you feel safe, you have security. If you have food, then like you try to feel loved and fulfilled, right? So these rats, they're not being attacked by owls. They have all the food and water they want. So at that point, it just becomes fulfilling their social needs.
mm-hmm. And
Mm, right.
Calhoun, he started developing these experiments, and he started to get well known, and he was hired by the National Institute of Mental Health. And so this kind of sponsor started to, which it's funny because like those corporations are kind of technically like called sponsors like today. I learned that from research, by the way. So like those big companies. But so he started working for them and started producing more experiments, and this also led him to having a fascination of, he had such a motive of trying to figure out human behavior through the experiments with the rodents that he was doing. So he would change up the systems that he would have them, put in. Examples could just be size, like the size of the whatever the compartment it is that the mice are in. Like he would change those up. He would change, kind of like topography in the experiments. He would take experiments and he would split the population into four groups, where they had to transport over into other quadrants. If you think of a square cut into four pieces, like you would have to go over certain bridges. You would start to see mice react in certain ways where some mice were lazy, some mice were aggressive, some mice, even started to change from their, I guess, moral standard. Like you would see how like certain mice would kind of also change from whatever it is that they're, I mean, also like their gender characteristics would start to change, which is super interesting, and we'll dive into that. Like once we start to cover specifically Universe 25, we're just kind of giving huge context to this episode, but Universe 25, this was performed, and it was broken down into four different, I guess, phases, right? So there
Yeah, there's
was,
some phase lines.
yeah,
But like the cool thing about Universe 25 is that to me is this was like his perfect rat civilization, right? Like this was decades of work led to
right, exactly.
this like he designed everything from he took the best of all the other ones that he'd come up with over the years and he said, "All right, this is the most controlled, most perfect. Like the rats like this, they like these things.
Yeah,
We're going to do all of these things to make them the most comfortable we can possibly make them and
right. Well, he was just
and
so
we're going to see how
fascinated
they
by
react."
what the term you said, behavioral sync. Like this is the term he created, and he something that he was super fascinated by because it was something that, like, honestly, took place in every experiment that he had, but it would change. So he was kind of like, wow, man, there's this variable, let's just try and see, how it would react. And I think he really was just obsessed with, like, not obsessed, but, fascinated with just trying to see how he can relate it to, yeah, human society. And it's crazy because, like, even just like the times today and plus history, we can see how, um, you know, when we go over these phases, you'll see and you can relate things to things that took place in history to where we're at now and maybe what's going to probably take place in the future. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, what's Brave New World? You'll live in the box and you'll eat the bugs.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I've seen that. Is that
Well,
that's a movie?
they might have made a movie out of it, but it was a book.
Sounds like Snowpiercer. You live in a
It's
train and you eat the
Yeah,
bugs.
well, it's the same kind of vein as 1984 and stuff, but basically like a dystopian world where everyone's relegated to their cube and everyone's eating bugs for food.
Mm,
You know,
yep, we're on our way
follow
there. We'll be there
follow
soon.
the rules or you get smashed.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Hopefully
But
not.
so the specifics about the experiment were that um Dr. Calhoun, he created a tank, and the size of the tank was approximately 2 meters by 2 meters and half of a height a meter. And the way he conducted the society is that he had it temperature regulated, like you said, Louis. He had the food and water resources that would sustain, I think, over 9,000 rats at one time. And on top of that, they cleaned, they nurtured, and they took care of the nesting area. They made sure that, like, disease wasn't something that was going to be like widespread, because they carry disease quite often. Um,
You said
and
it's 2 meters by 2 meters
yeah, which
by
is
half a meter and a half
meter and
tall.
a half. Yeah, I think it was like 10 by 14
Well, a meter is not even 4 feet,
by
right?
like
So
by
it
like
couldn't have been 10 feet because if
Well,
it's
or
two
something
meters
like
by
that.
2 meters,
a meter is like 3.1 feet.
yeah. So it's got to be like
Yeah.
6 feet by or 6 7 feet by 6 7 feet. That's enough for. He said that's enough for 9,000 rats.
Yeah, so the way he built it was like he stacked these apartment type style
Right.
corridors, I guess, or dorms or whatever you want to call it. But and what was unique was that over the phases, which phase one and or phase A and phase B were kind of like a productive phase where the population was starting to grow again. Just let me put something in there. Is that this was started out with 4 pairs. So there was a total of 8 rats that started off, and it was male and female in each pair. And they went on and they started to produce, and they started to produce at a rapid pace. Um, I believe phase A and B was at a pace. It was they doubled the population every 55 days, and then when they started to go into what was called phase C is when they started to produce at a slower rate, but they were at such a high population that this is where they started to see the behavioral signs. You started to see like outcasts, start to be like a its own little social group, and you start to see that there was a male social group that was aggressive, and then you would see that there was a female social group that was kind of like not acting accordingly to how they would. They weren't so protective over their babies, which they're actually supposed to be very protective. And another thing too is that things started to also change with the males. Is over that time the males started on to kind of like lose. Some of them started to lose aggressiveness. They started to like groom very well. They started to take care of their health. It was just hilarious. This is crazy. They start and they were very kind of like very well presented, because in this study there was a lot of rats that were attacked, like I said, there was this aggressive social group that also discriminated against the outcasts, and the outcasts would be the ones with like blood, you know tears on them or something, and like nails that were like scratched off and everything. That's just the way the mice react. um but this is where you started to see the social groups kind of start to go on. You started to see like the discrimination going on, and then you started to see like the different groups of these females and males start to get created that started to disrupt and stress out the society.
Yeah. So one of the cool things, or I don't know, cool is the right word, but interesting things when reading some of the research, Calhoun noted that in those phases A, right, when the growth is coming, um, you would see normal mice and rat behavior, right? Normal
Right,
mice
right.
behavior, where you'd find the dominant males protecting the food, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
normal, they'd sleep to their regular hours. The non-dominant males would wake up early because they wanted to be able to get food. So they'd wake up early and they'd go find their food. And then the dominant males would show up and be like, "Hey, that's my child. Get off," you know.
Mm.
And so the non-dominant males would go find some place else to eat. The females, obviously, as in normal mouse behavior, uh, the dominant males would have like harems of females, right? They would have their group of females that they would breed with, and but as they're going and the population starts to increase, normally mice and rats don't like to eat together, right? They're like solitary eaters. But it became where um, they the population grew enough that they had to, if they waited for someone else to stop eating before they started eating, like it would take all day. They'd never get any food. So they started getting used to eating together. And it became where they no longer would do their normal behavior, but they would do this group feed behavior. So even and they wouldn't use all the feeders anymore. They would just use the same, like they would all eat at the same feeders,
Yeah.
which started to like stress out and overwhelm some of the dominant males, right? Because now they're unable to protect the their harems as well because they're trying to protect the food, and and so on. Situations like that, strange things started happening like that, and then like Steven said, some of the males started changing behaviors where they had like the non-dominant males. Calhoun originally describes him. He said that they started becoming homosexual, but then he
Mm.
corrects himself and he says it wasn't homosexual. They became like pansexual,
Mm.
Pansexual,
where
yes. Yeah.
they weren't just trying to have sex with the other males. They would just having sex indiscriminately with all of the other rats, like
Right.
whoever
That's
would let them do anything, right?
super
Um,
gross.
No, I
yeah,
mean, well, and so this was also like he was trying to look for a a social group that was like perfect, right? Like one that was like kind of like where I'm getting to is like the Beautifuls. Like, what would you think about? What do you think about the group, the Beautifuls that
Beautiful ones.
he labeled the Beautifuls? Yeah.
The beautiful ones. Yeah. So as the phases went through, um, Calhoun started to note that after things started getting rough and the population kind of steadied out, right? It leveled out. That you had that group of outcast rats that were like the pansexuals and like they're just trying to get along, right? They're some of them he even described as being zombie-like, that like they just acted irrationally. Like sometimes they would just get angry and lose their mind and attack the nearest rat, and then other times they would just lay there and take a beating themselves. Um, but then there's this other group that it just started detaching itself from society altogether, and he found that they were living in the top levels of those apartment complexes that he built.
Fucking
That those
elites,
beautiful
bro.
ones, yeah, they're living. Basically, they took all the penthouse spots and were just like chilling. They'd
Yeah.
go down, they'd get some
Well,
food,
correct
and then
me if
they'd come
I'm
back and they would groom.
right.
They wouldn't interact in normal
Well,
ways. Like they would just kind of hang out with each other and just be like, "Ah, you're pretty. Oh no, you're
so
pretty."
correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Calhoun put the food and water at the top, and that's how like I don't know if I'm mixing that up with another experiment that he did, but it's something that I know that he might have manipulated the food in some way to where like that's how they adapted. So whoever, if you think about it, whoever is the kingpin of the society, like they would be first to come with like food and water or any type of like resource that would kind of,
Right. I don't think he might
I
have
don't know.
done
Yeah, I don't
something
know if
like
that's,
that, but I don't think it was for the Universe 25,
yeah.
because
So
otherwise they would have had to fight
right.
for their food and water.
So
But
real
Or
quick,
I think it was in the middle. I could be wrong, but
maybe.
I just wanted to ask this. This is kind of maybe a broad question. What was his whole purpose of this experiment? What did he do this experiment to get a certain um, a result, like a specific result, or was he just doing this experiment to just figure out what was gonna happen, or was he looking for a specific result?
I think it was more of what was going to happen, because like if you take the name of the article that he did, um, is population density and social pathology, right? He was trying to see, because he knew normal behaviors of mice and rats, so he was trying to see what the effect of population density
right,
would be on. So,
right,
and in doing so, extrapolating or making parallels, anthropomorphizing rats essentially to say like this is what happens in this specific society. These are the things that could be happening in human
Right,
society if we
right.
right.
overpopulate.
And I think another thing too is that he wanted to find the human, the key human trait
Right.
in
Okay, so
which
that's the
that would,
answer, right?
yeah, in which that would get you through, you know, the pressure, the tension that, and the stress that life brings you, you know, like what is it that can get you and help you, I don't know, you know, just get through kind of like what
Mm.
we're all going through on a daily basis. Cause we're all kind of, you know, we're all kind of going through like the same matrix that,
In the
you
rat
know,
race.
yeah, you know, that these experiments, you know, to, if we think about it, because we're given everything accordingly to how they were given, you know, we're provided as they were provided, and they diversed into groups in which that's how we are going, you know, we're diversing into groups. It's crazy when you're kind of relating the characteristics of this experiment to like real time stuff and just history, you know what I'm saying? It makes me think like, what if it's possible that this is how human behavior is, and this is the revolution of things. Like this is how civilizations are built up are sustained, are in a high, and then start to become highly densely populated, and then go through what a collapse that brings them to death, and
Right.
which that's phase D in Universe 25. Is That's what he calls it, as the death phase, Dr. Calhoun. And in this phase, the way I see it is like the mice became immoral. It's like when they first started out, they were doing things, I guess, morally. And I know it's, don't get me wrong, like we have morals. Humans have morals. Maybe the mice have morals. But if they do, like they changed almost like a 180 from, or at least most of the subjects in their chain, flipped. They flipped a switch. They started acting like irrational in a way. Like they kind of were, you know, in a decline instead of like you know, a progressing
Yeah,
society.
their behaviors changed so much that they were no longer able to sustain life.
And
Um,
and what's crazy too, is that like it became like, did it not become like normal? Like did like when they were going in from phase B and they were cruising through phase C, is there a point in time in that phase maybe to where, because remember the generations are still being produced and the older rats are discriminating more against the younger youth in that experiment, do you think like it's just something that would just, that it's just naturally going to happen because of like a seniority thing? Do you think like that played a huge effect in this? Was that the older?
I, so it's I think it's just it's like a social history or a it becomes like a different culture, right? It so kind of what Steven's talking about is in phase C, the Calhoun noticed a change in the breeding patterns of the animals, where those alpha males that were the fathers, right? Normally they would protect the nest where the mothers were breeding. Um, but it became so population dense that the females never got a chance to rest, that they were constantly being harassed by males. And so the females would have to just up and leave their nests. Sometimes they weren't able to move all their children, so the children started to die. And that was one of the main reasons why the population stopped growing after a certain point and kind of leveled off, because they weren't able to wean the babies as effectively.
Right.
Right.
And then it got to the point where the women or the female rats started having to, instead of taking care of the babies, they had to not just defend the babies but themselves. And so they oftentimes again would abandon their litters altogether, or and so you're getting fewer and fewer rats doing that. Um, and then throughout some of that process, because they're being harassed so much, because they're having to fight so much, they stopped even breeding at all, where like they just weren't giving birth. And so some of those young mice that were born, um, they had no mother figure to teach them how to be a good rat, right? That's paraphrasing what Calhoun said. They didn't have anyone to raise them into knowing how to be a good rat.
Right. That
Um,
makes sense.
and and so generation and after generation of that, essentially now you have got a whole generation of rats that don't know how to be a dad or don't know how to be a mom and don't know
Yeah.
how to
Yeah, it's like
wean children.
it's like the
Um,
females at some point became like a stay-at-home mom, and then they just couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle taking care of the kid and trying to go out and
no,
also
it
take
wasn't.
care of the kid, right? Like,
It wasn't stay at home mom. It was they became a single mom in a.
Right. You're right. Not,
of rapists,
that's what I meant. Exactly.
essentially.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
that's what I meant. Not stay at home mom, but yes, like a
Yeah,
single mom.
yeah.
yeah. They
It's a
became a
rough
Yeah.
single
world.
mom
Correct.
in
I have it written
in
down right here. Single mom. Yeah. Sorry. Hey, you
yeah,
got me, guy.
while
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for
while
correcting. I
boxing
appreciate
every
it.
dude that came and showed up.
Yeah.
Um, it almost when you were talking about it, I hadn't thought about this until just now, honestly. But they so have you heard about the male elephants in Africa?
No.
So
Negative.
back, I want to say back in the 80s, they had an issue with like wild elephants. You know, like elephants are super dangerous, and like in Africa, they're they're like protected, but they're almost like a nuisance as well,
Hmm.
right? Because they'll just come into villages and fuck shit up, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
like they'll kill people sometimes because they'll get aggressive. Um, well, I guess villagers or the government, I don't know, I can't remember all the details, but the essence of it is the older male elephants were killed, right? And so the younger male elephants, um, as they were growing up, they didn't have male role models. This is what
Mm,
they've discovered over time.
mm.
And so all of a sudden now we've got this group of elephants that are like super aggressive and don't know how to act. I guess there's a thing in elephant society where the older elephants will take the younger males, the older males will take the younger males, and they'll take them off like away from the herd for a little while, essentially like a male bonding retreat, and
Right.
then they come
Mm.
back. Um,
That's
and so
amazing.
so
That's
like there's
crazy.
this whole group of like younger adolescent male elephants who are fucking villages up and wrecking stuff, and like it became a real issue. And
Wow.
finally, as they got older, like the elephants that didn't get killed for being jerks, um, as they got older, like they started taking. It took like 20 something years, but they started taking the youngest elephants that that are adolescents now under their wing and being like, "Hey, don't be a jerk. You want to be a jerk? That's how they're gonna kill you. you know, you need to chill out. And so the male elephants started teaching the younger male elephants how to be elephants again.
Right.
And
That's amazing.
this rat utopia kind of, it just all of a sudden clicked in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that's essentially what was going on. Is they didn't have anyone to teach them how to be a productive mouse to continue society.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder if it like maybe territory had something to do with this experiment. I know I didn't read anything about that, but I wonder if like maybe like I guess an example with current with real life terminology would be like oligarchy, like where like governments back in the day were based off of, well, the power of them at least were based off of the amount of land that they occupied, right? This is like kind of like through the course of time, this is like how we have huge nations today, right? And I just wonder if like maybe this had something to do with the social behavior of, maybe this is why they maybe became aggressive. I know that, they were
Because
aggressive
they
because of
had
protecting the
land, but they didn't have land.
females, or just because maybe like they wanted the space to themselves but they couldn't get it. Maybe something like that. Not necessarily like, hey, this is my space, stay out of it, but more like, hey, you're in here when I want to be in here, and I want this all to myself in a way. And maybe that just kind of like played some sort of like psycho, some motorcycle, I don't know, something to where like it just formulated aggression, and this is where like you got all of these males that started to, kind of like, I don't know, put an act of war on other subjects in the experiment.
I think it's probably part of it. Our lizard brain, for us humans, as it does certain things, just kind of, or pushes us to do certain things on its own. I think most males of species, that's how they're wired, right? Like that's how we've survived through the years,
Yeah.
through social evolution and survival of the fittest. It's, like males are bred to be more aggressive, right? We're on the aggressive side because we got to fight for the territory typically
Yeah.
versus the females doing it. Oh,
I kind of
I
like
think
I kind of see like how well I just try and like relate to like maybe the experiments like Universe 25 can relate better to like cities compared to like rural areas, right? Kind of
Of
like
yeah,
course, right.
yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't have to, rural area. You got a little more space if you're not stuff's not working out for you in this spot. Like there's
mhm,
a mile down the road. There's plenty of room,
Yeah,
right.
rural
right?
areas, the communities in rural areas seem to be a lot more synchronized, especially back in like the 50s and 60s. The shit that started fucking everybody up is when the drugs were introduced in rural areas. That was really the downfall of like
Yeah.
seriously like
Yeah.
small towns. You would see a lot more camaraderie in small towns than you would in cities. Cities is a little bit more hectic, like New Yorkers yelling at each other in the streets.
Would you say like rural areas are
Versus
more moral than
were,
city
I'd say
areas?
that's my point. I'm saying was. It's
Yeah.
not anymore. It's all combined. Whether it's because it's the internet, but I think it's both the internet and drugs.
I
Combine those two
think
things.
it's. I think if we had to break it down numbers wise, I don't know that rural areas are that much more moral.
No.
Um, I like if you did it like number of people that are moral versus number of people that,
Right.
that aren't, right? I think
Right.
like probably percentage wise, it's probably still pretty
Yeah.
close.
I guess it's
It's
just
just that
based off
there's
of the
like,
population, right?
It's
Like
social
for
interaction.
for
It's
for
yeah,
having more
culture.
activity, I guess. Like
right.
it's
So
all the same shit.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I think like so there was, I think I heard this on NPR or something. Um, Somebody was saying that like basically you can only know or like be friends with a certain number of people, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, that's
It's
I forgot what that's called.
yeah, the number's somewhere like in the hundred. It's like
150 or something like
yeah, like I want
something like.
like number sticks in my head is like 123.
Okay. Yeah, that
Like
sounds about right.
um so I mean if even if you just take that number, right, and you're in a city environment and say 123 people you're going to be cool with, and the rest of the
Yeah.
people you don't really give a shit about because you're not friends with them, you don't know them, right? So 123 people in a city,
Too
that
much.
could be your apartment building,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
right?
Right.
You know what I mean? So that is like if you look at a footprint straight down from overhead, that could be 100 by 100 square feet, or like a 100 by 100, so like 10,000 square feet, in of space in a city,
Yeah.
but 123 people in a rural town, it could be an entire neighborhood.
Right.
Right.
You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
So it really all, I think that's where the issue comes with the population density
All
is,
relative or
oh
whatnot.
yeah, all of a sudden, you only have space for 123 people to give a shit about,
Right.
but there's 100,000 people there. So,
S-
you're going to be struggling, you're going to be fighting. I think a lot of these experiments and the things that came out of this, they were argued a lot back then in urban sociology and psychology and stuff.
Right.
In the 70s, a lot of people drew a lot of parallels to city living. I think,
Absolutely.
I
Well,
and
again, I mean
I
that
think
was
I think
that.
yeah. Sorry,
No, you
go
good.
ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think a lot of it was very valid, but also we're not I mean we're animals to a sense,
Hmm.
but we
Yep.
also have like the understanding that when we're fucking shit up, we can do things to change it.
Yeah.
Where like animals might not, like actual animals might not have the ability to fix that. I think a lot of the things in this study probably um, more so even than the cities, would be our prison system.
Oh yeah,
Oh, you
facts.
read my mind, you motherfucker. That's
Oh, of course, because
Like,
awesome, dude.
they can't leave that
yeah,
box.
they've got their
Cities, yeah, I can
apartments,
Right,
travel to
they've got
Florida.
right.
food that's provided, they have
Yeah.
water that's provided.
Well, dude,
Yep.
well there
Um,
was a lot of
they've they've got their pansexuals.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah, they do. Those motherfuckers.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of
Jeez.
independent studies that took place after I think it was in the 90s that where the people that were fond of these type of behavioral experiments, they went and they were like, okay, let's take a look at prisons. Like Louis said, like this is exactly the best scenario to do it. This is they we have them here, and they're, they have to be here. Like, we, they could do their studies, but what did they find in that? They found that there was over socialization. There was a tremendous amount of suicide. There was violence. There was stress. There was uh, uh, you know, psychological, disorders that were starting to like that people get from being inside, um, that type of society that they have to stay in.
Was there like really large state prisons back in the 50s and 40s? There was, right? Of course there was.
Um,
There had to be some sort of prison
yeah, I'm
system.
Shawshank
sure.
Redemption and all that shit, you
Well,
know?
I'm sure that like there was. I don't know that like there was population issues like we do have now.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
Like
I
Nazis
can't.
versus the Mexicans and Hispanics and that kind of diverse. You don't think there was that back then?
I
Probably
think
not.
there was that. I meant more just like density,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
Not like
overcrowding.
capacity
Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
the prison. Yeah, it wasn't over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but like the whites hated the blacks hated the Mexicans. Like that,
They
I
all
think
hate each
that's
other in synchrony.
yeah, I
Right.
think that's been a like a never-ending story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it used to once upon a time, I guess it used to be about what? Territory and not so much color and race. I guess that's where we're at in this social experiment now is
Yeah.
it's not so much territory anymore because we all kind of live together.
Well, I think it's still territory, but it's based
And,
on what like, one group controls the yard. The
Yeah.
other group is like,
well, right. I was talking about
that's
society and
in the
melanin. It doesn't
showers.
make any sense.
Oh, that
Yeah,
okay.
it's like
I
your
thought we were
skin
still in the
color.
prison.
Yeah, no, my bad. I'm
Yeah.
going down the rabbit
Yeah,
hole. So.
Bureau of Land Management.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I love that
Oh,
shit.
that's great. It's gonna
Yeah.
get brought up every single podcast.
That was awesome. This
Yep.
what comes to my mind when I think of the dense population, like we're going through it right now, and then you have um eugenicists, that live amongst us today that kind of like have some sort of plan to depopulate, you know, the earth. I mean, it's said, in conferences. It's not like it's not known to the public, but
Oh, wait, are you talking about our Lord and Savior Bill Gates?
yes, that's him. Oh,
Son of a
Bill,
bitch.
what's up, Bill? Listen,
Fuck you, Bill.
but like, do they know that? I mean, what eugenicists have been a thing what since like I think the 20s or 30s or something.
No, way longer.
It was started.
Way longer.
Obviously, it's been something that's been a part of like time, absolutely. But I feel like in this experiment, and I guess you could call like different maybe empires or civilizations, maybe you can call them their own experiments, and that we all kind of just like go through this turn of events where it just kind of just is a awesome thing. It strives, and it becomes something that like gets changed over time, and then just kind of just death kind of just comes to it in a way to where then another one is rebuilt. I mean, if it,
I
what do you think?
so I understand what you're saying. Looking I feel like looking at the societies
Like the times
and
of the
the
times of them don't
historicals.
have to matter. Like the
Right,
duration
right,
of them don't have to matter. But that
right,
that it happens, I
right.
guess is what I'm
What
saying.
I feel like though isn't so much. I don't think it's a population density thing.
Hmm. I think it's like a
Well,
generational theory thing. You think it's like well, which now that
uh,
had a lot to do with the experiment was the generations, especially with Universe 25's. That was based off of generations. You know, it was
yes,
started out
right.
with
That was. I feel like generations have something to do with it, but as well, like I don't think it's a single facet. I think it's very multifaceted. There's a lot of inputs that kind
right
of change things.
a
But
bunch of things going on. Yeah,
I think the biggest thing is it comes down to comfort level, right? If you're trying to survive, and I'm speaking human wise now, like kind of moving away
So,
from
what are you contemplating right now? Why the population died off? Is that what you're contemplating?
no, like why you get the behavioral sink, why you get such
Okay,
drastic changes in
right.
behaviors that then
okay,
causes the
gotcha,
population to take a shit.
gotcha.
I think it has to do with comfort level of whatever beings or entities that are there, and part of that's the generational theory, right? Like the survivors are strong and they create this awesome thing, and then their kids are a little bit softer and so on and so forth. I think it's once a society reaches a certain level, they're even the people that are struggling are better off than the generation before, right?
Right.
And like you look at our generations now, and I can't speak for everybody. I'm in a pretty good place. My mom worked her ass off to give me a good education and give me a good starting place, right? And you know, so I started middle class. You know, I didn't start poor. I started, you know, solidly middle class. And I worked my ass off to get to where I'm at right now. And like I don't know, I see people panhandling. Even the homeless people that I've met, they aren't starving. You know, they're homeless half the time by choice. You know, the other half they had a bad break, but then they might not know where every meal is coming from. But people are feeding them. People give them money. They panhandle. Most of the time they're drunk, so they got money coming from somewhere. Like liquor is more expensive than food most of the time. So and even shitty beer is expensive now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
you
regretfully bought a homeless guy a beer the other day. I feel bad about it.
Dude, that's
don't. He needs beer too.
I was just like, you know what? He was so dirty too. I shook his hand. I was like, I had to take a shower like 30. It was horrible. I felt
oh
bad though because
man.
I'm just supporting
Yeah.
his
But
disability or
like
whatever you want to call it.
like I said, like there's you know he might have some mental maybe not as strong mentally, and that's what led him to the life he's in. Also, but some people choose it. You know.
Yeah, he was definitely a drunk and fucked his life up like that. Most of them
Yeah.
do, like you said.
Yeah.
Most, I'd say.
Um, but I guess what I'm trying to say is you get to a certain point in society where you're not it's not about surviving anymore, right? Like we have so much it's we laugh and we call them first world problems, right? But we're at that point in our society where we need something to bitch about, and it's not fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Steven's kid just got eaten by a fucking wolf the other day. You know, we got
Mm.
to do something about these wolves.
Oh, I hope
It's
not.
it's the fucking other parents on my kid's elite baseball team are
Yeah.
fucking tool
Yeah.
bags, and they're getting on my nerves.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Hey,
Yeah.
wait, did you just say something that's the truth? What are you trying to say? What are you
No,
trying to say here, Louis?
no, Connor runs track. Connor runs track. Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Someone on the
so
track
like
squad.
that's where we are in society. So like the things we're bitching about, the things we're concerned about, like
I can see
aren't
that.
they're not
Yeah.
real things, right? Like we don't.
Yep.
So we're like soft as hell. We don't.
Mm.
So we're getting on we're getting on each other's nerves. We're killing each other over shoes. We're like everything we're doing is just less and less meaningful. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right.
So
kind
like
of.
we don't
Yeah.
have that moral thing, those
Absolutely.
lines to stand on that our forefathers used to have. Like to some of them, it was like, I'm not doing that, and there's nothing you can do to make me do that. And if you try and make me do it, I'm gonna fuck you up. For us, it's like this mildly inconveniences me, so we're not friends anymore.
Yeah. Do you think this kind of behavior has anything to do with the connection to nature, like animals, humans and animals? We are animals.
Yes.
Humans and animals, their connection to nature is a necessity, so that doesn't happen.
What if
Do you
what if
think
it
that's
what if
Yeah.
that
Yes.
I agree. What if it's based off of like a consciousness? Like what if it's like we're conscious, they're conscious, and we, I guess, share that kind of like vibration to where we would naturally act in the same fashion, according
consciousness
to
grid?
whatever we had to do, to live and survive, or to get along with society, or to be in a highly dense populated place, and to see that, that would change behavior of certain, you know, entities that are there, I mean,
What do you mean, like a consciousness
like
grid?
like
Is that
I
what you're
guess
saying?
like my example is like maybe we share some sort of similarity in consciousness with us and a dog compared to us and like a tree. You know what I'm saying? I'd say maybe the tree has some sort of consciousness, meaning like some sort of life entity to it.
Heat,
Right. There's
That
there's energy that resonates.
yeah, exactly, and that's my point is
there's
that
oxygen.
maybe that's just how like we're all kind of connected in some way to where if we're put in the same situation, we're gonna tend to over time maybe act the same way. I don't know.
I, I think I'm gonna tie both of your little theories or hypotheses together right now.
Cue the
um,
music.
s-
What nature and
yeah,
nature and
nature and then acting
consciousness?
in consciousness, right? So I think yes, like us being animals, we need a connection to nature that our current fashion of living has
Does
we're
not.
we're we're disconnected, right?
Agreed. Yep.
So I think that is um I think when we connect ourselves to nature, like we feel it. You go out and take a walk in the woods, like if you
Oh,
let yourself,
Have woods, god damn it.
well,
To take a
if
walk
you
in the
go out and
desert,
you
in the
take a walk in
cactuses.
nature,
yeah,
right? Like you feel it, like
Yeah.
yeah,
it changes your mood, right?
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
You might say it changes your resonance, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Um,
Was that circadian rhythm? Is that what it's called?
well, that's like just kind of like your awake sleep pattern kind of deal.
Yeah, but I hear there's some type of like if you stand, what will balance your circadian rhythm is you take your shoes off and you stand in a field of grass with just your feet. That's supposed to balance that. So what the
Okay,
fuck does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know about that.
You never heard
Uh,
that? All
no,
right, look that
no,
one up. The moon's in the
oh.
atmosphere and that one. There you go.
I will not. Um,
The
but so all
truth.
right. So, um, we're connected to nature, but we disconnect ourselves by living a certain way. Um, if we did so, we took those mice out of nature, right? And we placed them in a completely artificial situation, just like we do to ourselves. And so I think that's why we're able to get those parallels from the mice. And I don't think we said it yet, but like the mice reached in their death phase, I think they were still 200 and something mice still alive when Calhoun ended the experiment
Right.
because he said they at this point they're effectively dead because
Yeah,
they
there's
weren't none of the mice that were being born, if any were being born, were being weaned
no, and
to
now this had a lot
to a
to do
point where they
with
could continue.
I think he said something like it just this is where they took their course of like cannibalism where they just kind of started to like
Ooh,
just
fucking
eat
eat the shit out
eat
of
the
each other.
young and
Ugh.
some sort. I mean, yeah, they were just
So he
kind
was
of
like, I better stop this shit now. This is getting real ugly.
dude. I mean, this went over 500 and something days. This was 500 plus, I think, even longer.
Right.
Than I don't even know, but this is something that
I think it was
it's a
700
long
and some
time,
days,
man. A
right?
long time. You can only like,
It was like 2 years and some change.
yeah,
I want to
yeah.
say it was like
700 and,
That's still a long time with the way that they produce
or
and the way they can rapidly produce. It's a long time, super long time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So they just started. 200 were left, and they just were just eating the shit out of each other, and so he just had to stop it.
Well, they formed some sort of cannibalism. Yeah, they just kind of became
wow.
like, yeah, so
Cannibalistic
fucking
tribes.
zombied out that they're, you
I don't
know.
remember that. I think you read a different. I think you let your YouTube
Well,
just
no,
run in the
they're
background.
not they're not just eating each other, but they were killing their young. I guess is a thing. But
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
how the hell were they killing their young? They were just they would birth. I did hear that they would eat the babies. They started eating the
yeah, they
babies.
started eating the
Everything.
Yeah.
babies and everything like that. I mean,
Which you see hamsters do that. Why do hamsters do that? I've seen a hamster chomp up a baby.
I don't know.
Horrible.
It's kind of like thinking about like abortion. Like, why do people get abortions when they don't even want one? It's like they
So
just
you think
do
the
it.
hamster is just like, I don't want this right now, and just
Well, no, I mean
I'm
like,
trying
or
to work on
hungry.
me and my career.
Yeah, I'm trying to
I don't need this right now.
get this pen set up proper. I gotta spin on this wheel all day and chew on this piece of wood that looks like a
yeah.
carrot.
Do you think that I got a question for you guys? Do you think that the way society is set up today for us, that we are in a experiment as well?
Well, yeah, it's
Yes.
technically an experiment because we don't have, I mean, even a set system. To design any type of system
Yeah.
is technically an experiment, right? And we have capitalism, that's technically democracy. They're all just ideologies that turn into experiments, right? That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I think there are. It's kind of what Jesse said. It's an ideology, a system that was set up that um, I don't know exactly that it's an experiment. I think there are experiments going on within this framework that currently exists.
True experiments, actual controlled, like
Yeah, I think
purposeful.
there are probably people who have some power that and influence, and they want to achieve a certain effect
Right,
on us and or the
right,
population as a whole,
right.
and so they implement
Yeah.
certain things that say, all right, we're going to try this. And if it gets the effect we want, we'll do it. If it
My,
doesn't, we're
yeah,
going to back off and be like,
right.
whose
Yeah, that's
idea
my
was
thing
that?
too.
That's weird. I did what?
Yeah, because capitalism used to technically capitalism at one point was an experiment. It was successful, so that's why we use it today.
yeah.
Democracy was an experiment at one point. It was successful. That's why we kind of
Well,
use the foundation.
one thing that I did, someone kind of made me think. Like, we're not. America is not a democracy. There are democracies, but America is not a democracy.
Right, the
We
republic, technically,
we're
right?
yeah, we're a constitutional republic that elects representatives that through a democratic
Democratically.
process,
Yes, right.
that represent us, and so on and so forth.
Elected by the
Thank
people.
God for that, man. Or else, maybe socialism and some other things would kind of have could have taken over this place. It's crazy.
I think a combination of all these different, whether it's socialism, dude, I'll get so much backlash for saying that. If any, it, but socialism could be, in my opinion, combined with capitalism, combined with yada yada yada. You can form a
A
perfect system,
balance.
a balance, but there has to be regulation. There can't just be deregulated capitalism like there is now, where you see people. There's insider trading. That's
Well, I
all it is.
mean,
It's just one big scheme
Yeah.
now, and that's where the top of the richest people are, and then you get us all the way
So
down
you're
here.
saying
That's like
you're
never
saying
able to get up there.
so you're saying like free market, but like programs as well. Like free market.
already have that. I mean, right now,
Right.
but
Right.
certain kind of programs, like I don't believe in welfare, of course. I don't. I believe in the fire
Yeah.
department. That's a kind of a socialistic kind of an ideology. You pay into the fire department. That's how you get your salary. That's how the maybe police too, in a way, in some counties. I don't know. I know there's people that donate all the time, but anyways, regardless, yeah, I think that can be socialism and capitalism combined. That's, I mean, that's kind of what we have now, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not regulated properly, I don't think. So I think that's the biggest problem. There's so many bad things like welfare, and there's so many bad experiments that we're adopting right now that were experiments and they're just not working. Maybe there is a purpose for them though, to hold
Hmm.
down this, like welfare. I think that's purposely designed to hold down a class of people, just to hold them. But that's my opinion. So
One more thing I wanted to talk about before we get ready to close. Um, do you guys think that this Universe 25 has anything to do with the movie Mad Max?
like the reason why Mad Max was made,
So imagine Mad Max as like Phase D.
right?
And when you look at I don't know exactly how the apocalyptic, but then again
I feel like Mad
this
Max
is
would be after Phase D.
so right, it was like
Yeah.
apocalyptic, some sort of
Well,
apocalyptic event took place or whatever,
so
but
Mad Max was the sequel
to
Right,
to
collapse,
Road
right,
right,
Warrior,
to or I don't
right,
know
right,
the
right, right.
movie
exactly
To
what
Road
Road
happened
Warrior.
there.
Warrior. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, just caught you up there. Pop culture. Gonna learn
Yeah.
today.
So
Mel
Wait,
Gibson,
so
baby.
tell me about it. I don't know.
I
Talk to me.
watched.
Road
Fuck.
Warrior.
Road Warrior was a hard movie to watch. Like it really wasn't that good.
Dude,
So
I
I don't
liked it as
know.
a kid. I
I
don't know
don't.
why I liked it.
I don't know how it like how it made a sequel. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I remember
That's
watching
funny.
it. It was I don't remember exactly how the apocalypse started, but it was like Mad Max's character living in the apocalypse, and this gang came and killed his wife. Like they found
Hmm.
her in bed, raped her, killed her, and that's how he became the road warrior.
Right.
He started chasing them down and fucking them all up.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was already like shit had already gone sideways.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like that movie had something to do with like nuclear fallout.
Probably they didn't have great imaginations.
I
Well, they did, but like
feel like I think I
that was
heard
the
they kind
go-to
of
back then.
I feel like they threw that movie together, Road Warrior. They kind of just threw it together real
Yeah, I
quick.
think it was like a B film.
Yeah, it wasn't a book, right? It wasn't based on a book, a novel.
I
Might
don't
have
know.
been. I don't know either. Regardless,
But so Steven, you think that Universe 25 might be parallels the Road Warrior?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I just kind of
Explain this, please.
just how like the way the society was set up, how that you it just kind of like how the morals flipped, and how obviously there was Mad Max who was a good guy, right? Well, I don't know exactly what he was trying to do in the movie. I can't remember, but um that there had a lot to do with like how a society would react to like an apocalyptic event. And that's how the whole purpose of these experiments, that's the whole motivation that was behind all these experiments, was that the Scientific America, which was a journal, they were talking about like apocalyptic events and things like that, and they wanted to do different experiments and tests, to try and formulate ideas to where they can like, okay, now since we learned this, we can put it towards like human behavior. Okay, now how can we predict something happening in the future? But I don't know. I just thought it was a cool, interesting thing to talk about. To me, it felt like the death phase, how like kind of like how the population was at a low, or at least it wasn't like at a growing pace at all, or even like it was kind of like sustained, at what it came to. But the roles that each subject played was just kind of like a inverted type, um what, like they just didn't act how they did when, I guess, the experiment was starting off.
I feel
Like in
like
phase A and B.
I feel like Mad Max is like the beginning of another phase after D, because if you pay attention in Mad Max, there is
Could be.
a slow growth starting because the bad guys have like this whole city or facility where they're growing plants and they are starting to grow again. But I think that's what it really was. It's
And I
like
just like the way like
D
they
happened
lived, the way they
and then
lived, was kind of like, in these like, I don't know, like
post apocalypse.
post apocalypse, like
Yeah.
apartment
Apartment.
style
Yeah.
type,
Right.
like
Right.
compartmentalized systems, and it was like it
Right.
just reminded me of like maybe like some sort of Universe 25 experiment or something.
I think Soylent Green, you could compare those to that movie to Universe 25 a little bit. Definitely in ironic ways as well. Have you guys seen that Soylent Green, the old uh
Now,
have you heard about it?
it sounds familiar.
Soylent Green like pretty much it's
Isn't that where
overpopulated.
like the food they eat is chopped up
Soylent
humans?
Yellow, yeah, exactly. Soylent Yellow, Soylent Green, Soylent Red. It's all different things, and it's nutrition for the overpopulated world. It's based in 2022 is the year that it's based in. 2022. The movie's made in like 73 or 71 or something like that, I think.
I think they're almost right on.
Yeah, well, it's way overpopulated. It's so cheesy because the guys in the movie, like if you watch the trailer, the guys like the guards that are trying to back the population up at the facility where they feed everybody, it's kind of like a bread line. You stand in line, you wait for the Soylent Green or whatever that they feed you, and they're like trying to back these people up, and they got fucking punter helmets on, and it's just an old cheesy movie. It's like the guards are wearing punter helmets. It's hilarious. But regardless, they
That's
start
funny.
feeding them, yeah, people. And it's overpopulated. And then the people eventually I've never seen the ending, but the people eventually one of them finds out that it's Soylent Green's made out of people.
Oh shit.
You
So
did it,
it's the company that's
sons
making
of
people
bitches.
there. But the scary part about that is, and this is for another day, but is alkaline hydrolysis is actually a method used today where you take a carcass and you basically, it's called alkaline hydrolysis. You basically liquefy this into like a fertilizer, and the color is actually green. And they use this in pepper fields. So they take carcasses, any carcass, and
Yeah.
liquefy into fertilizer for hot pepper fields.
Dude, so when you sent me that article or whatever, I read, I did some research on it, and it's not wrong. So look, what it made me think of was the movie War of the Worlds. When they
Oh
fucking
yeah.
would,
Yes,
dude,
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
who I was texting because
yeah.
I text you guys like a lot.
That's
So
exactly
I don't
right.
know what, but I was like, dude, this fucking reminds me of War of the Worlds when they like capture the humans and they are just fertilizing the fucking
Spitting them
planet
out everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah. Yep,
I'm like, oh shit, no,
dude,
this
that is
can't be
crazy.
possible.
Yeah, I never thought of that. So,
Yeah, well,
anyways,
they
back
use the
to
nutrients in the bones. A lot of the nutrients come from the actual like bones from the carcasses and stuff like that.
oh,
Bone
I'm
meal, yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
The
Yeah,
bone meal.
absolutely.
yeah.
Calcium, dude. There's so much nutrients that could come from
Oh yeah,
a
yeah.
carcass. I mean,
My
that's what
dick.
so much. I mean, technically too. That too. So, what are we doing? The bananas thing? Is that what we're getting ready to do? Because I got a whole thing for this.
Okay,
Okay,
all
you got
right,
it. Take
all
it.
right. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll start. So
Well,
for
what's the
me,
What's the
bananas?
question?
What's the
What's the
question?
question?
What are we talking about here? What are we bananas
oh,
about?
okay. So, like, is it easy to swallow? This is how we do this, just so Stevie
Yeah,
doesn't fuck this up again, because he fucks it up every time. This is his own
I
podcast.
know.
Ain't choking on them bananas.
So it's easy to swallow. So it's like half a banana. So it's believable the experiment would work. So the question, I guess, would be, uh, can you relate Universe 25 to our current society today? And what is it parallels? Is there parallels? For me, it's like right when I heard the cage for Universe 25 is 2 meters by 2 meters by 1.5 meters tall or whatever, I'm like, that is, I don't care if 9,000 rats can fit in there. That's not natural, and that's way too small. Like you said with the prisons, if you box motherfuckers in a comfortable area at first, and then the prison population, which prison population never technically doesn't grow. They just transfer people. Like it doesn't. It's not like they're rapidly reproducing in prison like the rats were. The rats were
Right.
producing at such a high rate at one point, and it started to snowball, and it got to this. But it's just to me, I don't buy it because we have nature, we have cities. It's relatable in a way, but I feel like this experiment was pretty much from my opinion, the reason why it got all hectic is because they were boxed in such a small area, and that led to a lot of fucking crazy results that ended up happening. I think it's plausible if you were to take people and do that and box people in, but we're not technically boxed in. I think there's some things that are relatable as far as like the beautiful ones and how big our population is now and how it's changed and people there's tribalism and there's groups of people now. I think that's the only relatable part. But for I guess I'm saying this is like too much like 3 bananas, 4 bananas. It's hard to
Okay.
swallow. It's hard to believe that it's relatable enough to, I don't think it would ever happen in our society. I think our planet would literally have to fucking, I don't know. We'd have to
Cybertron.
I
explode
yeah.
in population.
Yeah. I think so for me, I think I'm gonna go with 2 bananas. I'm gonna go with 2 bananas because it makes me this thinking about this, it made me think of like ancient periods of time, and it made me think of different empires that have came and disappeared. It made me think of that there's always a high and then a low kind of to when it comes to society and civilization. Either it could be from a catastrophic event, it could be from war and other cataclysmic events that take place. It could be anything, but I feel that when people, like you said, with population, when you condense population, I think it has an effect. I think that the bigger effect comes from the social side of things. I think it's what it, especially with us humans, we have a lot more in-depth thought than rodents. Like we have a lot more in-depth morals than them, and I feel like certain people will always have differences and will always go through those trends throughout civilization, and maybe it does lead to a collapse. Like when you look at the history of Rome, like Rome was a super aggressive entity, and was very kind of masculine in nature, and then it kind of over time started to demasculine, and that's another kind of connection that maybe I can make with Universe 25, and that the roles of the genders kind of started to change towards the end of that empire, and which it had a huge effect with the collapse of the Roman Empire. That that's another kind of connection that I can find, at least to history, because that's really all the connections we can make, because it's something that's fulfilled its time. We could always make connections with what we're going on with today, but we can't really see the future. So I think I'm like 2.5 bananas. I think like it has a lot of good comparisons and things that we can relate to today and in history.
Okay. You got something to say, Jess?
No, 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 no.
Okay.
I was gonna say, yeah, I agree with you.
uh, all right. So I think probably 3 bananas. Um, it's. I think there are parallels that can be made, but like was previously mentioned, it's we have the ability to see what's actually going on and change course, like just as humans. And it's obviously it's very artificial, where those rats were like they had no way of their designated area where as humans we're not fucking trees. Like we can fucking uproot and find another place to be. Um, typically, there's certain segments of our population that it's a lot more difficult for them to accomplish that goal, right? But they and maybe some of this experiment might have a little stronger parallels to them. Uh, but it goes back to kind of what Stephen was saying. You reach if the certain societies they reach a certain point, whether I don't know if necessarily that's a certain population density. I think it could be maybe now after kind of hearing what Stephen just said. You reach a certain population density, and so the people at the top or that top quarter or whatever, um, they're not struggling anymore, right? So like what their priorities are no longer surviving, but now they're figuring out how to do other things, and maybe now their priorities are pleasure. Maybe now their priorities, maybe their pleasure is torturing somebody else. Like shit starts to get weird when you don't have to worry about finding your next meal. Like if you're worried about frivolous shit, then things start to get weird, and that can change the morals of a community. If the top half of everything, which oftentimes, unfortunately, can be construed as role models for a lot of people, because everyone wants to move up. If they're doing weird shit, then the people below them want to do weird shit because they want to be cool too, and society starts changing from the top down. So I don't know that it's all the same parallels. Probably with the prison system, I would think is probably the closest. But and then you could probably see it in probably the lower socioeconomic communities as well. The ones that
Yeah.
are, you might say, are trapped where they are.
Yeah. I guess you just to piggyback off what you're saying, like you could say like the prisons, which is more of like a parallel, right? I guess we could all agree that like
Closest in our society.
in which it's I guess with the amount of subjects compared to the system, it's more of like a concentrated uh you know system than a city would be. Like a city will have its space of diversity where certain people wouldn't react to the system the same way, but then you have a
Right.
tremendous amount of
Or
people that would react a certain way.
or there's regularly new people coming in and leaving.
Right.
Where a prison, it's pretty steady. The general population, what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As far as population wise. Yeah, they can't go over. And they
Yeah,
want to keep it probably at capacity at all times, I'm assuming.
yeah. What
For
Calhoun
whatever reason.
Yeah, one thing that what Calhoun thought, because I know we're always bouncing back from like, was it population that affected it, or is it the social events that took place? And he thinks that it's the social side of things that manipulated the way the society changed.
Oh, he
So
didn't think that it had anything to do
he
with the
didn't know
space,
because of all of the
other
recent
experience,
experiments that he did.
all the other
He
experiments, right?
yeah, he had it involved with high populations, and that's something that he purposely did with all of his experiments. At least most of them, not all of them. But
Right. But yeah, that makes sense. Once you lose your animalistic instincts,
yeah, well, one thing that
you
was
you
cool
just
too is that he would manipulate certain things in the system. It changed with
Scientific
other
method.
experience.
He would
Yeah,
have
exactly,
his controls, and he would have the variables.
exactly,
right.
I think he
exactly.
was very thorough in most of,
Yeah, I wish I
or
heard
probably all of it.
the other side of things where it was the people that like I guess were against
Argued against
the
it.
argued again. Yeah, I always like hearing both sides, but
Yeah.
this was
It is harder to find.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um,
Kind of odd. Have you heard this kind of squeak this random fact in? Is that hogs, when they're domesticated, they lose their husks. are their tusks.
Hmm.
So if you were to take like a domesticated pig and throw it into the wild, wherever you throw it, it's going to eventually grow tusks because
Again.
it's in the wild. But if you domesticate it and make it comfortable, like Louis was saying, it's all about the comfortability. It just completely changes. You lose your
Absolutely.
instincts, your natural animalistic
Yeah.
instincts.
Hogs
Absolutely.
are very interesting like that because they've changed physiologically
Right,
like
right.
within like a week to a couple
Oh,
months. They
wow.
like their hair changed, like they start getting furrier, like thicker hair.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like within weeks once they become feral. Like they
What a
become
weird.
feral like that. And then like you said, you domesticate them and they like, all right, well, I got all my food. I don't have to go rooting around for
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
um
like they're not even what they're a completely different animal in a
I
It's
way.
I
crazy.
think hogs are probably a lot closer to humans than most people realize.
I've heard. Well,
Um,
that's why the Muslims don't eat pork, right?
no, it's that was I think that mandate goes back same as like the Jews. It's like a disease thing. Like they
Oh,
carry
really?
certain
Yeah.
diseases
Yeah.
that
Yeah. They're
I
unless
was
very,
properly
always
cooked,
I
very
was always
like
dirty
told it was
animal. Very
I was
dirty
always
animal.
told it was because that our bodies are so similar to the hog. That's what I was told multiple
I mean,
times.
I'm not Muslim, so I can't speak to that. I
No,
know the Jewish side,
the
and I
Jewish,
Maybe
the
know
it's
that
Judea, yeah.
there are
is there
parallels.
anything with Christians with that?
Well,
I
if you're going from the Christian standpoint, then you're gonna go off of like the Old Testament and New Testament type scriptures,
Yeah,
and
so
I
probably
mean
they're not
it's in
supposed to
there
be eating
too.
hog
Yeah, I
then.
mean at least it's like preferred not to eat swine.
Yeah.
Doesn't it
You know
say
what I'm saying?
don't eat birds, don't eat anything with feathers? Doesn't it say that in the
I don't
Bible?
know. I can't
I think
recall that.
something. All right, I'm getting off track, but
Maybe,
anyways, yeah.
maybe.
But yeah, I mean, like, so I can't. Uh, Kind of weird. I don't know if Stevie's ever smelled it, but like burning human flesh, like a lot of
Ooh.
people say it smells like really bad, like it makes them sick or what. I think that's the hair that they're smelling. Like if you smell like burnt hair, that smells pretty nasty. But
Sulfuric
like,
smell.
but like human, like a human cooking, um,
Smells like
which
meat.
it smells like a fucking barbecue. Like it's weird
Gee.
for me to even say that, but
Jeez.
like I've smelled like people cooked before, and
Wow.
it smells like someone threw a fucking hog on the grill.
Jesus
That's what it smells like.
Christ, man, and burnt it.
Fuck.
They fucking burnt the hog though on on that grill.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Oh.
there's also like it's one of those old timey sayings. Like humans are known as long pig. I don't know. Look it up. Look up long pig. I'll look it up for you right now.
Oh my
The
gosh.
saying
Never heard
long
that
pig.
one.
Jeez.
Long pig. Oh, Jesus
Yeah,
Christ. So lizards are real? That's
long pig.
crazy. If we're called long pig, then there must have been either cannibalistic societies that came up with that word or another thing that likes to eat humans.
All right, so there's a movie. It's showing up on IMDb, a video in 2008 called Long Pig. But um, so boom.
Human flesh eaten. Yeah,
The
so human
Urban
flesh
Dictionary: the
or
flesh of a
human.
man intended for eating.
Mm-hmm.
Long pig, derived from puaoa, a phrase originating in the Marquesan language to euphemistically refer to cannibalism.
Polynesian term, right?
Yeah, the phrase
Oh
appeared in
man.
Frederick O'Brien's 1919 travelogue of French Polynesia, White Shadows in
Oh.
the South Seas.
Oh man.
Quote, upon it once stood the temple, and about it were enacted the rites of mystery, when the priests and elders fed on the long pig that speaks, when the drums beat till dawn, and wild dances mad in the blood.
Fuck.
Oh, that's grody.
All right.
That's
Damn.
Yeah.
gross. Brings me back to watching that episode on um Man Eater with Steve Ranella where he goes to Bosnia or whatever and he eats
Meat eater.
meat eater. What did I say? Man Eater?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. He eats monkeys, and he just felt really bad about it. He was like, I don't like this, but he did. He tried it.
Oh my
He didn't eat the
gosh.
brains, did he? No brains.
Maybe he
Oh,
did. He tried like
I,
pretty much
there's.
everything they offered him. He
I
tried, I
mean,
think.
that's like a delicacy around that area, I think. And I hear though that there's like parasites and shit in the monkey
Yeah,
brains.
prions, I think they're called prions or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Get into your brain and just eat your brain.
No thanks. I
Yeah.
have limited quantities.
I'm cool on that. I'll eat Jello instead.
Right. Oh, jeez. Well,
Where we at?
that was pretty good, man. That was
I
pretty good.
think that's it. I
Yeah.
think we covered it all. We hit our bananas
Yeah. We covered
and
our, good points. This is good. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me again.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
This is
you're
Anytime.
great.
part of the crew now.
Yeah,
Oh
man.
man, am I have been accepted?
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
you didn't notice we
We
changed the
changed,
Um,
we
logo
changed
and
the
everything?
logo and everything.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Oh, did
yeah,
you
your
really?
face isn't on there, motherfucker, but it's
Put my face on there, you son of a bitch. Come on.
I got to change it on.
Give me a spot. Don't
yeah.
make me look like an idiot though.
You
Give me a
got
sick,
you got a
cool,
spot, man.
give me a
Yeah,
cool looking beard.
Oh yeah.
Give me a cartoonish.
we got to change it on Twitch now too. I just realized.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't even
We got to
realize you
change it
changed
on
the logo.
Twitch.
We'll do that after this. We'll take care of that.
Yeah, and we got to change it on the Discord server too.
Yeah. But everyone, we thank you
We'll
for
do that.
tuning in. We appreciate the time. We love you all. If you haven't subscribed, liked, shared, or commented, go ahead, please do so. It definitely helps the podcast.
Yes, please share. It's the
Yes.
best thing you could do for us.
Oh yes, and we're on all socials. Go ahead, you can look us up on anything. If you have any input, if any emails or comments or anything, any topics you'd like us to cover, we'd definitely love that feedback. But other than that, again, we thank you guys for tuning in, and we appreciate every single one of you guys and ladies. But have a good night and take care, everybody.
See ya.
Toodaloo.